Hello everyone, we are only one episode away before the season finale of Season 2 of Scream the TV series. On this video, I will be discussing my final thoughts on three characters, Kieran, Eli, and Stavo, and I will also be sharing my thoughts and my final conclusions of these characters, if they are guilty or not. On this video, I will also be discussing my thoughts on other characters like Miss Lang and Emma's father, Kevin Duvall. So without further ado, let's begin. Let's start things off with Kieran. A lot of people believe that Kieran could be the killer this season, and there are people out there who believe that Kieran was the one who was Piper Shaw's accomplice in the first season, and it kind of does make a lot of sense. Now, in the pilot episode of Season 1, Emma and Kieran are talking, and they are at Brooke's party, and Kieran talks to Emma, and he tells her that everybody has their own personal problems. He also mentions to Emma that she has the perfect life. If you watch Season 1, at the season finale of Season 1, Piper said the same thing, that Emma also had the perfect life. And at the end of the pilot episode, the killer calls Emma and tells her the same thing, that she has the perfect life. Now, is that all connected, or just all a coincidence? Let's not forget that in Season 1, Piper got help from a mysterious person. When she and Will were attacked at the warehouse, the person seemed to be a male, similar to the same height as Kieran or Jake. Probably Kieran. Now, if you guys actually been watching my videos, then you should know that I've made like 2 videos on Kieran. And if you actually want to learn about more Kieran and my thoughts on him, go check out my videos. But in Season 2, there's been a lot of proof that show that Kieran could be the killer. Now, on Episode 9, the day after Kieran was supposedly kidnapped, he and Emma spent a lot of time looking for details about Miss Lang. And later on that day, during that party at the old orphanage, Kieran calls Sheriff Acosta on his phone. Now remember, the day before this episode, on the previous episode, Episode 8, Kieran was kidnapped. If you watch Episode 8, then you should know that Emma received a phone call from the killer, and the killer was using Kieran's phone. But wait, I have noticed that the killer this season has made the habit of taking the phones of all the people the person attacks. Jake's phone, Eddie's phone, Seth Branson's phone, Zoe's phone. The only 2 people whose phones weren't taken away by the killers was Miss Lang and Kieran. But I highly doubt that Kieran got another phone, since the day after he was kidnapped, he was already at Emma's house early in the morning, and then he went to school with Emma, and then he spent most of his time during the day with Emma looking for answers, and they went at the party. So I doubt Kieran got another phone, meaning that Kieran actually had his phone. But I find it real strange that the killer would actually let Kieran keep his phone. I find it real hard to believe that the killer actually returned Kieran's phone back to him. It seems a little strange. Now, if Kieran is the killer, then what's his motivation? What's his reason for killing? Yeah, we do know that his father died during Season 1, but is there something else that we don't know about Kieran? We do know that his mother and stepfather died in a car accident involving Kieran, and he does have guilt over it, but why did the killer bring Emma's father back to Lakewood? Is this somehow connected? Could it be possible that maybe Kevin Duvall was somehow involved in the car accident? Maybe he was the other guy in the other car. Maybe Kieran believes that the other person in the other car was Kevin Duvall, and he believes that Kevin Duvall is also responsible for the death of his parents. Could that explain why Kieran came back to Lakewood in the first place? To look for Kevin Duvall? If you think about it, Kieran and Piper came to Lakewood around the same time. So are they connected? But do I believe if Kieran is the killer? Well, to be honest, there is a high chance, so I will have to say yes. Kieran could be one of the killers this season. Now let's talk about Gustavo. When we first see him, we know that he is a suspicious character. There's something about Stavo that we don't know. Yes, he might be the son of the sheriff, and he's really talented at art, and he has an interest in horror, but there's something about him. He seems to own a Brandon James mask, and he draws mysterious drawings of current events involving the killings. Let's not forget that we also learned this season about Stavo that he accidentally shot a friend of his back in Phoenix. But my personal thoughts about Stavo is that it'd be too obvious if he was the killer. It's not possible for him to be the killer. I'm not sure he is the killer. This is what I believe about Stavo. Stavo isn't the killer. He, however, is helping the killer. My thoughts on him? He is actually helping the killers out. He's not killing anybody, he's not the killer, but he's helping the killers. He's helping them with the bodies, with their plans. And in case you don't know, my thoughts about Stavo is that he is helping the killers. He is somehow learning everything about them, and he is making a story about it. We have noticed that he has been making these sketches, this comic book supposedly. Could it be that Stavo could actually be making his own comic book of the Lakewood murders? Could he be making his own masterpiece, his own story? But let's not forget Miss Lang's attack this season. There are obviously two people that were involved in the Miss Lang attack. We only see one person attack Miss Lang, one killer attack Miss Lang. The person that had the knife that began to start attacking Miss Lang had a knife and also managed to stab Seth Branson. But once the killer goes upstairs and grabs Miss Lang and throw her off the stairs, the killer no longer has the knife. During the Miss Lang attack, both Stavo and Kieran are nowhere to be found. So is it possible that maybe Stavo was one of the killers? Or one of the people that were actually under the mask there? Because if you think about it, Stavo's mask has also been missing also. But I have an interesting theory about Stavo's mask. While his mask has disappeared, I believe that the mask that Stavo has that's been missing is actually being used by Kieran. On episode 8, Kieran gets kidnapped by the killer, supposedly, and he is unmasked. But where did the killer get the mask from? It's possible that maybe that's Stavo's mask. Stavo was around during a lot of the stuff that was going on. He was there when Kieran was unmasked. He was also there when the rave party was happening. Based on my theory, Stavo knows who the killers are, but he doesn't want to reveal it, because somehow that jeopardizes his life also. But the killers know that Stavo might actually know who they are, but the killers aren't targeting him because he is the son of the sheriff. But one thing about Stavo that starts questioning everything that he's been doing was this season when we find out that his father discovered a drawing of Seth Branson handcuffed. Now Stavo wasn't there at the hotel, so how would he know that Seth Branson was handcuffed? Brooke didn't tell him. The only person Brooke told was Audrey. But this is what I believe. If you actually saw episode 7, the episode where Brooke goes and meets Seth Branson at the hotel, you should know that it was actually Stavo who was telling Brooke about it. Stavo was encouraging Brooke to be aggressive towards Seth. It was probably Stavo who gave Brooke the idea of handcuffing him to the bed. Let's not forget the fact also that Miss Lang recorded a conversation with Stavo about the dead bodies, about him keeping bodies. But what does that mean? Does he really keep bodies, or is it all part of his fantasy, his comic books, him keeping the bodies in his comic books? Or could he just be helping the killers out with the bodies? But do I believe Stavo to be the killer? To be honest, I don't think so. Stavo can't be the killer this season. Now let's talk about Eli, Kieran's cousin. My thoughts on Eli are a bit mixed. I'm not entirely sure about Eli. I was suspecting Eli at first, but now I'm starting to have second thoughts on Eli. For starters, he has made the habit in the past of breaking into people's homes for the thrill of not getting caught. But let's not forget that the killer also managed to break into Audrey and Emma's home numerous times. So could Eli somehow have something to do with that? On episode 8, during the carnival, Kieran attacks Eli. They argue and Kieran attacks him. And on the following episode, Eli is nowhere to be found. The following day after the carnival, Emma and Kieran go out to seek answers about Miss Lang, and they end up going to a party that is actually at the orphanage that was set up by the killer and Haley. The killer also managed to kill Haley, but I've noticed that the person that killed Haley was not a tall person. The killer that was stalking Emma at the carnival the night before was probably tall. He was probably someone like a Kieran or something. But the person that killed Haley was not that tall. and Eli was nowhere to be found. On the latest episode, episode 11, Emma discovers that Eli actually was at Lakewood during season 1. Eli was present during Will's funeral during season 1, meaning that Eli was actually in Lakewood during the Piper Shaw murders. But if Eli was actually at Lakewood during that time, would that mean that Eli was actually in Lakewood the entire time? Now, I have noticed that Eli's mother, Tina, has been acting very suspicious also. But my thoughts on Eli's mother is that Eli's mother is actually a gold digger. She's someone that actually cares about money and wealth. That might also explain why she was trying to flirt with Brooke's dad, the mayor. Also, on the latest episode, we discover that Eli actually goes to Brooke's dad's home and discovers that Brooke's dad has been doing some illegal activity, such as insurance fraud. Later on that episode, the mayor goes on to the mysterious Brandon James pig farm, and there he's supposed to meet someone that knows about the whole insurance fraud thing, and the killer was actually there and kills the mayor. But wait, the only people that actually knew about the whole thing was actually Eli, Kieran, and Eli's mother. So could Eli be the killer, or could he be Kieran's accomplice? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure about Eli. He seems to be a decent guy, but I'm not entirely sure about Eli. There's a chance he could be involved with the killings, or he might not be. I'm not entirely sure about Eli. I'm not sure about Eli. Maybe Eli knows something about Kieran that we don't know. That might explain why Eli was in Lakewood during season 1. There has to be a reason why the killer brought back Emma's father back to Lakewood. I do have an interesting idea about it. If you guys watched the original Scream movie, you should remember that Sydney's father also tried to leave town for some time. However, at the end of the movie, it's revealed that Billy and Stu, the killers of that movie, they actually were the ones that actually had Sydney's father held captive, and they try to blame Sydney's father for the killings. Now on episode 5, the last time that we actually see Emma's father Kevin actually says that he is going out of town to get some help. Do you see some similarities there? Could it be possible that the killers actually were the ones who told Kevin to get some help, and they're the ones who actually somehow held Kevin captive? Could this mean that the killers were trying to frame it all on Kevin? While the killers have been trying to make Emma and Audrey look like the victims, look like the killers, they'll try to make Audrey and Emma look like the killers, and they'll try to make it look like Emma and Audrey are blaming someone. And who will they try to blame? Well, Kevin Duvall. I'm not entirely sure about Miss Lang either, but she is very suspicious, and in case she isn't the killer, the reason why she's doing the whole documentation and recordings of conversations is for her own benefit. She wants to write her own book about it. But if she indeed is one of the killers or is involved in the killings, her motive might actually be for her own wealth and fame, for her own profit. She could actually make a lot of money in trying to framing Emma and Audrey for being crazy. But in conclusion, my thoughts on who the killers this season could be, my final thoughts about it, is that Kieran potentially could be one of the killers this season. And his accomplice, I'm not entirely sure who could it be, but there's a chance that it could be Eli, and maybe, just maybe, Stavo might also be involved in the killings. Well, I'm not entirely sure about the killings. Maybe he's involved with the bodies. He's probably helping the killers out with the plans, and along the way, Stavo could be writing everything down. He could be making his own story, his own comic book about it. But whatever the case might be, whoever the killer is, it has to do something. It has to involve something with Maggie and Sheriff Acosta. It has to involve something with the past. That's what I believe. But my final conclusion is, Kieran might actually be the killer. Stavo, I'm not sure he is the killer. I don't think he is the killer. And Eli, I am not entirely sure. There's a chance he might be or might not be the killer. So this has been my theory, my final theory this season. Who do you guys think the killer this season will be? I am really excited for the final episode, and hopefully maybe the day after, I don't know, sometime after the final episode season finale, I might make a reaction video or something, I don't know. Or I might make a review on the final episode or something. There's a high chance that I might be wrong. I'm pretty sure that I might get something wrong about it. Some of my theories might not actually be correct, so I just made the theories up also. But if you guys have been watching my theories, I just want to say thank you, and I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching.